Yuan was an ugly, disgusting, worthless loser who lost his parents because of their gambling addiction and wasted his entire life playing useless video games. But before he knew it, he accidentally entered a secret hidden dimension where a beautiful, seductive vampire killed him for being the weakest man alive. In his last moments, however, Yuan summoned the hottest fairy from the past and used her body to awaken his god form, giving him the forbidden power to destroy all of humanity. After getting evicted for not paying rent, Yuan had finally packed his suitcase and was ready to leave. But as he was about to board the airplane, space-time began breaking apart, and a portal materialized at the end of his path. Without even realizing it, he was isekai'd into a different dimension, and before his eyes, a dragon nearly ran him over and ended his pathetic life. But while he was on the ground, he saw Spider-Girl and Tony Stark flying around, along with Hermione on her broom, and a white frozone gliding past him. Above his empty head, a girl was flying a dragon away, and when a land beast licked his disgusting face, Yuan finally realized that he was in a completely different world. Eventually, he managed to find the stone god, and two magicians told him that the god will measure his magical capacity. But as he touched the stone, a bright white light emanated to blind the others, but the two magicians disqualified his ugly ass immediately, and everyone started laughing at how weak he was. When he wondered why they were laughing, the magician explained that the stone god glows in various lights, but a white light is a sign of an absolutely useless human without any magic. Just then, however, one of them noticed there was a small streak of green light, and told him that he had the smallest wood magic in existence, although the only thing smaller was the actual wood he was hiding.
You're a victim!
Walking away in shame, Yuan wondered why his second life was about to be as depressing as his last. Because no matter how hard he focused, he wasn't able to cast any magic, and spent the rest of his week sulking in depression. However, an old man appeared before his eyes, telling him not to waste his life away, because even though he had the weakest magic in the world, he was the only other person in this country to awaken wood magic. As depressing as being a farmer was, Yuan knew he needed a way to make money and survive. So for the next few weeks, he began upgrading his magical capacity until he was able to grow plants with his powers. But on a random night, he heard the voice of two simps on their knees for a girl, kissing her feet. One of the spineless dweebs began kissing the hot girl's neck, and while Yuan tried holding his breath watching, the girl's eyes turned demonic, and she bit into his neck to suck all of his blood away. As she began flying, she revealed her true vampiric form, and when the other simp awakened his dormant magical energy, he began summoning rock fists from the ground and launching them towards the vampire. However, she dropped his friend and used her vines to destroy all of his attacks, sending them crashing towards the ground. As the man attempted to run away, the vampiric vines managed to restrain him, and while she was drinking his blood, Yuan began trying to flee the scene. But before he could get far into the forest, the vampire's massive cannons had already noticed he was running away. And as soon as he thought he was safe, the vampire appeared right behind him. After getting closer and asking him what he was doing, Yuan tried running away from her, but she destroyed the ground and used her thorny vines to tie him up. After all the hentais he'd watched throughout his life, Yuan never thought he would be the one to get penetrated by tentacles, and the vampire had began drinking his blood. In his final moments, a massive beacon of light exploded towards the sky, and from the depths of his heart, a girl materialized and appeared before his eyes. He realized that if he was the main character, this girl would be his servant. But the girl told him that she was from hell, and summoned her sword, telling him that she was here to take his disgusting virgin life away. However, she realized that his body had already passed out, and the vampire told her that Yuan was nothing but her delicious sacrifice. The red-haired girl slashed the vines away, and told him that she would save his soul and restore his strength. But in order to do so, she was going to exchange the vampire's vitality for his. So she began flying towards the vampire, and before the vampire was able to even land her strike, the fairy slashed her down, eliminating her with a single blow. As she drew her vitality out, she began transporting it to Yuan's body, and from the distance, a mysterious woman realized it was finally time. A few moments later, Yuan opened his eyes once again, realizing that the girl had saved him, and asked her if she was his fairy. He wondered if she would become his personal maid and allow him to use her every night, but the girl wondered if he was able to recognize her. However, Yuan had never seen her before in his life, but the fairy told him that the only reason she saved his life was so that she could end it herself. As she let those words out, the fairy began flying towards him with her sword. But after slashing him down, the wound appeared on her body. She wondered what Yuan was doing, and the mysterious girl appeared, introducing herself as the chairman of the Shuo Yue Academy. She told the hot fairy to calm her ugly ass down, because if she continues harming her summoner, she would be the only one receiving the damage. However, the fairy didn't believe her words, and tried slashing him down once again, but was knocked down, so the chairman came to Yuan and handed him the spirit manual, telling him to raise his hand. As soon as he touched the book, a light emanated around him, and his body began speaking on its own, summoning the fairy to return back into her book, and revealing that her name was Mo Fei. Later that night, the chairman said that his new book would explain the history of the fairies, but since it belonged to Shuo Yue Academy, the only way she would give it to him is if he were to attend their school, and find the vampire hiding among them. In return, however, she promised to give him 3 more fairy seeds that would be even stronger than Mo Fei. So Yuan got on his knees and promised to be the best student alive, wondering what types of fairies he was going to add to his harem next. While reading the manual at night, the system inside the book activated, telling him that this book contained the memory world of the fairies. After all, fairies aren't born, but are the incarnations of past lives, so the only way to fully control a fairy is to go into her memories and befriend her. However, Yuan was too weak to go into Mo Fei's memories now, so she told him to come back in 24 hours, and fuse the book into his cell phone, and replace Siri, making their communication easier. The following day at school, everyone was disgusted that the failure was going to be in their classes, so one of the guys tried embarrassing him by rolling an ice crystal on the ground. As Yuan went to pick up the trap, a massive green light emanated around them, glowing with a second light, and making Yuan the first person in history to have a double attribute. In an instant, his body scanned the entire room until he found the hottest girl, running up to her, and using his greatest Reddit pickup line, wondering if she would mayhaps be interested in doing a fork noodle. However, she ran away in embarrassment, and the guys were shocked that Yuan was the bravest chat alive. After running away, he asked the system in his phone to explain why he lost control over his body, so the fairy told him he'd awaken the charm ability in his sleep, along with his secondary magical attribute, the wind magic. For the rest of the day, all the girls thought he was the coolest guy alive, but during magic battle class, Yuan was the only one who couldn't keep up with the pace. When they were finally done, the instructor told them that they will be practicing their magic output in duels, and the one who was bullying Yuan earlier volunteered to fight in the first match, and challenged Yuan to be his opponent. So when the teacher screamed at Yuan to take his position, they both faced off against one another, but the princess of the nation arrived and was going to be watching their duel. The disgusting moron swore that he would defeat Yuan for the princess, and launched his blades of wind towards him, but Yuan had negated his attack without even trying. However, his opponent launched a tornado towards him, and Mo Fei told him to summon her already, and finish this match right away. However, Yuan wanted to handle his opponent alone, and launched into the middle of the tornado, activating his nature magic to destroy the worthless moron. But after winning the match, Yuan was knocked out and woke up a while later inside a burning village. As he walked around, a man ran up begging for Yuan to save him, but a strong man pulled him to the ground, and as he crawled backwards, he saw a little girl shivering, telling him that she was cold. Realizing she was burning up, he decided to cool her body down with a towel, but she passed out on him. Before long, 2 ugly losers appeared from the alley, wondering how many gold coins they could sell the girl for. Yuan tried stopping them, but got his disgusting face smacked down, and they carried her away. Determined to save her, he snatched her up and began running off, but they caught up to him, and began beating him as he protected the girl. When she thanked him for saving her, he realized that she was Mo Fei, and began falling towards a light. Just then, he woke up, and the leprechaun told him that he was in the fairy spirit world. This world was the space of their memories, and that it was the only way to gain full control over his fairy, because since they were originally human, all the memories from their human life were relived in this world, and that the only way to have control over his fairy was to understand her emotions. Deciding to explore her solution, Yuan called upon the fairy, but she had no time for his bullshit, and demanded to know what he wants. So Yuan began telling her that he was a gentleman who tips his fedora, and believes in respecting all women, saying that he would never command her to do anything she didn't support. She thought his speech was inspiring, but said that he was the same as every other perv in her past. Just then, 2 girls with massive cannons appeared inside, and Yuan hid himself under the covers. As the girls visited one of the earlier simps, asking to taste the rest of his meat, Yuan realized they were the vampires he was asked to find. However, they had already noticed his presence, and Yuan was afraid that they would make him his dinner before Mo Fei could be summoned. Just then, the Vampire King appeared in the room, and told the girls that they have a duty later tonight. After returning home, Yuan began to wonder where the chairwoman of the school had gone, worried he would get isekai'd soon. In the night, Yuan decided to eat instant noodles, but soon heard footsteps outside. Thinking it was the vampires, he decided to hide, wondering how they discovered his home. However, the intruder was only a girl, and she noticed the delicious aroma inside, but Yuan knocked her ass out with a punch. Right then, he discovered that she was the princess, and thought he would be executed if he was spotted beating her up. Realizing she was alone, he decided to pull her inside, and laid her on the bed, and having no other place to sleep, he decided to lay by her side. However, when it was morning, she thought he was a perv, and knocked out his tooth before kicking his plot. With his future seeds close to getting annihilated, Yuan began explaining that he helped her inside after she passed out on his porch. So after a moment, he realized he could seduce her by creating instant noodles, and as she took a spoon, she thought it was delicious. Just then, she sensed a presence outside, and told him that someone was at the door. At that moment, a vampire broke down the door, but Yuan and the princess had already sneaked off into the other room. As the vampires raided his house, they wondered where he was hiding, and Yuan caught a jar before it broke. One vampire followed his scent to a door, and destroyed it with her giant cannons, but found it empty. However, as they tried destroying the room, Yuan restrained them with vines, and began running away with the princess. As they arrived in the forest, he told her to hide behind the trees, but after a few minutes, the vampires had already arrived. As they charged at him, Yuan summoned Mo Fei to fight for him. So immediately, she appeared with a flaming energy, drawing her sword and blasting the vampires away, and raised her sword to summon the grave of hell. The vampires thought they had a chance, and tried attacking her, but she cast a spell that burned them with hellfire, and they realized they were trapped in an invisible barrier. However, the barrier suddenly cracked, and the Vampire King descended to the ground. The girls thought they were safe, but he destroyed them instantly, and the leprechaun told Yuan that he was a level 8 knight. Even so, Mo Fei remained eager to fight, and they charged at each other, clashing swords, but she promised to still eliminate Yuan afterwards. As she withdrew, she discovered that she was wounded, and Yuan asked the leprechaun for her help. So she told him that the only way to increase Mo Fei's strength was to rebuild her spirit world. Yuan thought it would be easy, and told her to teleport him to the spirit world, but she told him that his spiritual power was not enough. At the same time, Mo Fei and the knight clashed swords, but he pushed her off. As Yuan realized that he had exhausted his spiritual strength during the duel, he wondered how he could recover it. Just then, the princess appeared before him, telling him that she was a spiritual master, and could help him with enough spiritual strength to teleport to the spirit world. So he told her to close her eyes, and promised to serve her noodles for a year if she would grant him her strength. At once, she started gathering her spiritual powers, but the knight smacked Mo Fei aside, and summoning a power of his own, he unleashed a flame to destroy him. Luckily, Mo Fei saved him, taking the impact, and the energy penetrated Yuan. Inside her spirit world, Mo Fei slayed some bandits, but decided to spare the last one as he pleaded for mercy. Just as she began to leave, the lowlife thought he could sneak up on her, and began running to slay her. But Yuan screamed at her to watch her back, and she stabbed him immediately. However, when he hurried to meet her, she went right through him, and they realized that she could not see them. With Yuan shocked by this discovery, the fairy said this was only possible if his soul already existed in this world. That evening, as Mo Fei appeared from an alley, she spotted a dude before her, and told him that she likes his long sword and hopes to buy it. But he told her that it wasn't up for sale. As she left, Yuan thought this new guy looks as ugly as he does, and wondered if he may have influenced her past somehow. After a few days, Mo Fei noticed the mysterious man playing with the kids outside, and thought he was a gentleman. However, when he tried saying hello, she shut up her window instantly. That day in the street, a group of bullies started beating up Mr. Gentleman, but he continued protecting a girl. When Mo Fei arrived at the alley, she grew angry at the sight, remembering that Yuan had saved her in the same way when she was younger. As the leader tried knocking out his tooth, she caught and squeezed his hand. And as they realized that she was an infamous killer, the cowards ran off immediately. To thank her for saving them, the man offered her his long sword, calling it a gift, and she slashed a glass to test if it was sharpened. So in exchange for the sword, she told him that she would save him whenever he was in trouble. However, Yuan thought she was being baited into a trap, thinking that the man was a spy, and had intentionally waited to draw her attention, thinking that the man had successfully tricked her and was leading her right where he wants. Meanwhile, the princess was starting to exhaust her powers. At the same time, Mo Fei and the knight continued clashing swords, but he kicked her away, creating an explosion to devastate her body. Even so, she was bent on protecting Yuan. As the vampire unleashed a powerful aura, Mo Fei stood in his way, and he charged at her with his aurora sword. Ready to die, she caused her sword to vanish, and his long sword penetrated deep inside her. However, she decided to activate a curse with her blood, and at that instant, large vines bound him up, and she realized that he would only stay trapped for as long as she was alive. Even so, she was determined to protect Yuan until her last breath, but was sad that she could not change the past. In the spirit world, Yuan began to wonder how they could become visible to Mo Fei. With his efforts having proven futile, he decided to scream at the guy, calling him a worthless moron, hoping he would hear his voice. So the man told him to shut the fuck up, and Yuan realized that he has hope. The guy said that they have the same soul, but Yuan told him that he was evil and demanded to know what he intends to do with the girl. Yuan's alternate soul introduced himself as An Yu, the rearrangement of letters in his name, and told Yuan that Mo Fei was merely an NPC in their game, but Yuan told him that she was important to him. The next day, Mo Fei heard footsteps outside her apartment, and as An Yu knocked on her door, she pulled him inside and nearly ended his life. However, he was unfazed and told her that her eyes are prettier than the stars. When she asked why he had come, he told her that he came to offer her some food, but she realized that it had spilled on the floor as she pulled him inside. Feeling sad, she tried to take it, but he promised to make her another one and decided to leave. Yuan tried screaming at her to come to her senses, as An Yu was merely toying with her heart, but his words were emptier than the air. That evening, as they sat on a tower, taking in the lovely sight, An Yu told her that the tower was the safest place in the city. He said that he was an explorer, and had traveled all over the world in search of treasure, but she wondered why a weak, ugly loser like him was able to travel anywhere. He told her that he wants to take her to a faraway island, and to spend every day making her happier, but she wondered if she could abandon her present life. Within a few days, she had begun slaying thieves, but soon came across An Yu outside the alley, and hid her sword, afraid he would be disappointed. He told her that he bought ingredients for dinner, and suggested that they head home together, but she told him to head home first, and promised to join him soon. As he left, she hid inside the alley, and was sad to have tricked him. When she arrived home, An Yu revealed the food he made, saying that it was a special meal his mama used to make. However, Yuan thought every single word was a lie, and wondered why Mo Fei was too moronic to see beyond his lies. Feeling bad for herself, she tried telling him that she was a killer, but he told her that he loves her anyway, and was lucky to be by her side. She told him that a man had protected her when she was little, and had made her grow determined to live. So An Yu said that he wasn't going to leave her like the other man, and would remain by her side forever. By the following day, Mo Fei began wondering how she would make enough money for their trip to the island. The guild master thought her trip was a trap, and warned her to stay away from An Yu, but she was already lost in the realms of love, and her mind was made up. As she met him that evening, she revealed that she had bought 2 tickets for their ship, and could not wait to get out of this hellhole, so he told her to wait for him at the tower. The next day, Mo Fei slayed another thief, taking it for her final kill, and after returning home, she closed her box and began to leave. In the street, she came across 2 dudes who began teasing her about her trip. However, when they realized she could end them instantly, they started begging for her forgiveness. Luckily, Mo Fei was in a good mood today, and decided to leave. After arriving at the tower, Mo Fei was excited about leaving the city, but Yuan wondered why An Yu had told her to wait for him here. He had a bad feeling about this, and thought this must be the reason why Mo Fei became an angry fairy. When it was afternoon, Mo Fei realized that An Yu was still not there, but thought he was delayed by traffic or something, and decided to keep on waiting. Yuan wondered what An Yu's plan was, and thought he was definitely hatching something evil. By the 3rd night, Mo Fei remained on the tower, determined to wait for her Prince Charming. She had dreamt of this moment for weeks, and thought he may arrive as soon as she leaves. However, Yuan knew better, and began screaming at her to return to her senses, but there was no use. When it was morning, the guild master revealed that their town had been invaded by bandits in her absence, and that no one could escape to the city.